All right, box and whisker plots is something else that you probably also already learned. You should have. I know I taught this when I was teaching 7th grade a few years back. And I am teaching it in Algebra 1 right now. So hopefully this is something you've seen a couple times between then and now. Sorry, that's my dog sniffing. Okay, so how do you draw a box and whisker plot? The first thing you need to do is find what we call the 5-number summary of the data. The 5-number summary is going to include 5 things, obviously. That was kind of a dumb comment. The 5 things that you're going to have, here's your 5 items. 1, you're going to determine what's the minimum value in the data. 2, you're going to figure out the first quartile. 3, you're going to find the second quartile, which is the median. 4, the third quartile, which is the, I'll tell you in a second. And then the 5th thing is the maximum value in your data set. So those are the 5 numbers that you're trying to figure out. You're going to put this on a number line. So when it says construct a horizontal scale, that means space it out, label it, make sure that it makes sense. And you're going to plot those 5 numbers above that number line. Notice above the number line. You don't put it on the number line. It's not like when we do inequalities or something like that. Okay? Then you connect the whiskers start at the lowest number and the highest number, and they go up to the quartiles, and that's where the box starts. So this is what that's all going to look like. You can come back and refer to these steps later, but it's going to make more sense when we figure that when we actually do one in a second here. Now, what are quartile 1 and quartile 2? Let's see, where do I have space for this? How about up here? Quartile 1, that's what this Q stands for, is quartile, which should give you a hint of how many sections we're dividing this data into. Quartile number 1, which is also called the lower quartile, is going to be, you find the median of the data, and that divides your data in half. The quartile number 1 is the median of the lower half. The lower half of the data. Quartile 2, which is the median, is the middle of everything. And then quartile 3, which is also referred to as the upper quartile, is going to be the median of the upper half of the data. So that's what you're trying to figure out here. You're really just doing a whole bunch of medians. There's not really any sort of calculation you have to do when you make a box and whisker plot. So here we go. Let's do one. Here's a list of ACT scores for 15 different seniors. We want to make a box and whisker plot. Since we're going to be finding medians, that ought to tell you that you need to put this data in order. So let me do that. Ta-da! In order. So we can start really easily right off the bat by figuring out what the lowest number and the highest number are. This is going to be our lowest data entry. This is going to be our highest data entry. Now that they're in order, that's real easy to tell. Now we're going to go ahead and find the median. Now there's 15, so if I divide that in half, it's going to be between 7 and, not between. Here's how I always do it if I don't want to do the crossing off back and forth, which you can totally do. I say, okay, 15, I take it down 1 number to an even number, to 14. So that would be 7. So it's going to be the number after the 7th number, which would be the 8th number. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The median here is going to be 24. That's our median. Okay, now here's how this works. We used the 24. It's called the median now. So the only data that we're going to look at when we do our quartiles is we're going to take these values and find the median of those, and we're going to take these values and find the median of those. Okay? Now, notice that if we had an even number of data entries, we wouldn't have used either of those two middle numbers. So you would still count those towards the lower half and the upper half. So now we need the median of each of these, which is going to be 21 down here, and the median is going to be 30 here. So this is quartile 1, and 30 is quartile 3. Remember, it's not quartile 2, because that's the median. We just don't call it that. All right, so here is how we draw a box and whisker. I see that I have to get from 14 up to 36. That's a span of about 22 numbers. I think that I can go ahead and start my number line down here. Maybe I'll start it on 15, and then I can count by 5s really easily. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 25. 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 35. And that leaves us a little bit extra space. You can decide how you want to count, and if you can count so that it's a little bit nicer and takes up all the space that's given to you, that's usually better, but sometimes it's just not going to work out that way. And something that's missing on here is we should probably have arrows on there to signify that this is a number line and it keeps going in both directions. So here's how we're going to do this. We take and plot all 5 of those numbers from left to right. Well, I didn't give myself room for 14 down here, did I? So we'll just make it up. 1 to the left. This is going to be the 14. 21 is going to be here. 24 is going to be here. 30 is right here. And 36 is going to be here. Okay, from the low to the high is where we connect our whiskers. And then this is where the box goes. And the line goes through the median. And that's how you get your box and whisker. And that's super easy. What is really important, though, is that you know where to get those 5 values. And that's so important because we want to be able to interpret this information too. Okay, which we're going to do in just a second. But we want to be able to look at a box and whisker plot and say, oh, this number is going to be the mean. Or, oh, this is the interquartile range. And that's what I want to talk about here. Interquartile range is how far is it from quartile 1 to quartile 3. Now, I mentioned earlier that quartiles should give you a hint of how the data divides up. You're dividing it into fourths. We're dividing it in half with the median, and then each of those in half with each of the quartiles. So we're getting 4 things here. So if I look at this example, we want to find the interquartile range of the 15 test scores given in the original example. Well, we had a lower value, or not a lower value. We had a what am I trying to say? A lower quartile. I think it was quartile 1 was 21 and quartile 3 was, I think, 30. I might be wrong, but I can't scan back, otherwise I'm not going to have any writing on there anymore when I go back. But that's not the point. We're just trying to get an idea here. So if I want to find the interquartile range, the IQR, that would be 30 minus 21, which would be 9. Okay, now what does that tell us? When we look at a box and whisker plot, and it's, again, always going to look like this, it's going to have a number underneath, and then you're going to have whiskers and a box, and the box is always going to have a line in the middle. That's your median. Here's what's really important. How much data is inside that box? How much of our data is going to be found within the interquartile range? Well, we divided it into fourths. From here to here is 1/4. From here to here, 1/4. The top half of the box, 1/4. And then the last whisker is 1/4. So in other words, inside this box here is 2/4 of the data. That's 50% of the data. So let's say that you took a test and your grade is a value that falls in this top half of the box there. Okay, well, you can say that you did all right on that test. You did better than half of the people. There's still 25% of the people who did better than the range that you were in, but that's still not bad. Now, if you got a test score that was up in here somewhere, you would know that you did pretty hot because you're higher than 75% of the people, 3/4. So the whole idea there is going to be to base it on fourths, and that's going to help you to answer some of the questions. All right?